Hello and welcome back. I don't know if I can keep calling it the Ecuador Insider Podcast. Why not? The Ecuador Insider Podcast.
Why not? It
Jesse,
is what it is.
Brandon, joined by your dog. What's the
What's up,
dog's
guys?
name?
That is Biscuit.
Biscuit. Biscuit is very sweet.
Biscuit is a sweetheart.
There's something to be said for dogs that with hair.
Yeah.
As opposed to
Like
fur?
the fur.
Is it as opposed to fur?
Yeah, I mean, she's super soft.
Super soft. They don't shed.
Yeah.
They need haircuts.
They do need a haircut. She needs a haircut.
Well, not yet.
I trimmed her eyes. Tiff and I trimmed.
Oh, did you?
They were covered in front of her eye. You see how she's got like the one pink around the eye and the one
Yeah.
brown? At first, I'm like, oh, she got pink eye? And I'm like, no, it's just the way God made her.
Yeah. Well, here we are.
We're here.
We're here. Had some rain.
We've got some rain. No, it's nice. It's raining right now. How awesome. It feels good. You know, that tells you, doesn't that tell you something about yourself when you're at the point in life where it starts raining, you don't run to get out of it. You don't, like, oh my God, you don't stress out like, oh, my clothes are all wet. I'm like, now it rains. I'm like,
I was walking the other day after basketball, and I had like my hippie bag and my backpack that's kind of hippie backpack and also has holes in it.
Yeah.
And I was wearing sandals, and I think I was probably shirtless, and I had this hat on.
Oh yeah.
And I ran into Trevor.
Vilcabamba.
Into Trevor.
Okay.
And Trevor and his wife, whose name is slipping my mind. And really nice people.
Oh,
and
they're great.
And
Awesome.
Trevor's sitting on his motorcycle, and I'm like 50 feet away, and he goes, what does he say? He says, I'm forgetting the word now. It kind of kills the story. What's the word for a, like a bum, but not like a bum, just like
hobo?
a hobo.
No, shut up!
I think that was it. So he goes, I'm like 50 feet away. He's like, man, you're looking like a hobo or something. You're looking more and more like a hobo. I'm like, yeah, I've been going more and more for that look over the years.
Oh, that's great. Oh, that's good. How they doing, man? I haven't seen them since they've been back.
No, they're good. They're really cool. I like them.
They're awesome, man. Very cool. We've got, the rain. It's rained last night for about 4 or 5 hours. Rained this morning. It rained yesterday a little bit. It's really good to get that rain. I can start seeing, the layers of mountain ranges now that, the fire's kind of.
Yeah, it seems like rainy season has actually begun.
Yeah, that's great. They did a ton of work. It was cool to see the community come together over the fires and put that stuff out and work on that. And the bomberos, they did what they could and kept going. And you see these guys choking on smoke, and they're really, it's like firefighters anywhere, but when you see it like this firsthand and you see what they're going through, you're like, man, I respect that, that's your thing, man. That's you're doing this. And
yeah, the people in the community never cease to amaze, and there's so many layers.
Yeah.
It's sort of a never-ending, discovery.
Yeah, yeah. And it's, we put a video out that showed some of the work that's been done, that people are doing, and all right, see you getting out of the rain? Yep. But it's cool to see that, and you see, like we talked about on the pod last week, where we talked about, the power outages and then the fires and how that impacts life and how it's not, there are some inconveniences and you're seeing some cool things. You're seeing some chickens have some fun over there. But you're seeing people come together, and it's not been this catastrophe. Yes, it's disgusting. It's sad that 10,000 acres or plus of jungle and forests has burned. And people have lost homes in some cases, and animals have died. That's tragic and sucks. And the power outages before that, and even that are still going on in some places, that's tough. It challenges people. It's disrupted life. But man, there's people that are I'm calling out the haters, Jess. The haters. I'm done playing pretend that we don't have to not offend anybody. I don't care anymore. Guess what? If you're watching this and you're gonna come and tell us about the devastation that's happening here in our area and say that we're lying and sugarcoating, I'm sorry, stop watching the podcast because you're full of it. It's not true. Like, it doesn't exist. That's not how it played out here. It's like things happened here. Yeah, but guess what? Our businesses, are people going out of business because the power outages and the fires? And yeah, maybe here and there's some trouble, but it's not like every Ecuadorian is on their deathbed and, life is over and oh my God. It's not been like that here. That's not been my experience. That's not been almost every Ecuadorian that I know. That's not been their experience. So when you've got people that aren't even from here that are saying, oh, you sugarcoat and, you're how dare, it's disappointing that you have an opinion that you have that's actually telling the truth about where you live. I know better than you. Like, pound sand, watch something else. Like, I'm done. Like, I don't even care about that anymore. That we live in a small town. It's a small town. We don't live in a big city. We don't live in this big metropolis. It's a small little podunk village in the Andes Mountains of 7,000 people maybe. I don't even know. So there's gossip everywhere, and it's your typical small town. It's just the Ecuadorian Andes Mountains version, and there's some other special things about it. But from that dynamic, that's kind of what it is, like,
yeah.
Guess what? It's not New York City. It's not Guayaquil. It's not Miami. It's not Buenos Aires. It's not anything like that. So people that come and want to say, oh, it's devastating. Yeah, maybe power outages in a big city. That's different. Maybe the power outages, even in Loja, maybe had a bigger impact. But even then, you go to Loja and they all got generators and they all have, and there's a different issue because then you're smelling, you got the fumes and the air quality and all that. But, I was in Cuenca during power outages. It's a way bigger city. I don't know. Do you know what I'm trying to say?
Of course. I mean, I think, if you watch us sitting here on this pod and like think that we're trying to sell you something, your powers of perception may be fairly limited. I mean, I'm sitting here in a bucket hat.
Yeah.
And like, my kids were sitting in my lap last week.
I've got a Slimer t-shirt.
You do have a Slimer t-shirt on. And I think when I started the real estate company in 2014, at that time the goal was definitely to promote the area and help people live a different lifestyle that's available here and, connect buyers and sellers and make a good business and all of that. And it's not that business doesn't still exist, it does, but over the years, my goals really changed, and at this point, like, I do the podcast because I like you and I like talking, I like talking to you, and I have a good time doing that.
I don't care what they say.
And
you're all right.
And for the people that this place might resonate with, that sort of the texture of what's available here, for people that that might appeal to. I think it's cool to share. I think it's cool to share and be like, and let people know, hey, from our perspective, this thing exists.
Right.
The last thing I'm ever, you or I are trying to do on this pod is like sell anybody on anything. So I think that just sort of like a priori, I think is a lot of times where people who might make comments like you're talking about probably have preconceived notions that are incorrect in that way.
Yeah.
Then the second thing is like, it's all just perspective again, right? So, I mean, you can listen to one person tell you that, if you don't take a shot, you're killing grandma and you're a menace to society and we're all dying and, watch out and run for the hills.
Because of you,
right.
Super spreader.
And you can listen to another perspective who says, viruses don't exist.
Yeah.
This PCR test is fake.
Right.
And this is all just drummed up to have sort of draconian type measures.
Right.
Those are very different perspectives.
From Nobel laureates on both sides.
On both sides, right. Those are very different perspectives. The same way, if you're looking at events like the ones you mentioned, a fire, political turmoil, violence, power outages. You know, if you're coming from like a Wall Street Journal, CNBC, you know, Bloomberg, perspective, and you're thinking about, you know, quarterly earnings and job reports and, you know, what the, you know, and those sorts of things, then yeah, you could describe things that affect the economy negatively as devastating and traumatic and, you know, the world's ending.
Hyperbolic.
If you're coming at things from a perspective a little bit more like you and I and probably a lot of the people that live in this region, where, you know, your life's relatively simple, you're living off the land to some degree, you know, your supply chain is very simple, or you know, unsophisticated, you know, your
pace of life,
your goals in life as well, right? You're
slower.
Your goals are different, right? Yeah. Like you're not. Then yeah, it's been, and also, right? Like, how do you even define good and bad? You know, like the only constant is change. You know, like things. Yeah. So I don't know, man. I get it. Like I get you know, you're always gonna have, like, in any situation, the sky is falling crowd, you know, no matter what. Like, circumstances change, but the people who feel the sky is falling basically permanently feel the sky is falling. Right. And then the people who, you know, who more like me, who are kind of like, no, it's okay. Yeah. No matter what. Right. It got pretty crazy. I mean, there was a fire bearing down on my house.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was at the peak of these ridges here. Like, oh my gosh.
And I was cool with that, you know, and because that's just my, that's how I live my life.
Yeah.
So.
And that's great, because it's like, you know, when you talk about, maybe that's the piece, like people, oh, you're trying to sell something. It's like, we don't have a widget we're trying to sell on Amazon that, like, I hope they buy it when they get home, it's going to break. You know, even if we were trying to sell it like that way, like it's, you know, I think how you described it, maybe some of the perception is like, if we were lying to them, they come here, they find out, okay, liars, you're going to find out really fast. All right, you know, I don't experience it the same way. And that doesn't mean we're lying about it if they don't experience it the same way. But if we were actually like blatantly lying about this place to try and sell real estate, you'd find that out really fast. No? I mean, of course. You'd come here and you'd be like, I keep swearing, man. You're gonna have to bleep a lot of these.
And even that's interesting, because, you know, this place, like we always say, it's truly not for everyone. And it's really like, whether you resonate with this place or not, it's a very kind of interesting topic, because it just really, again, it just depends on like where you're at and what you rock with and your perspective. So, you know, people come here all the time, and I can see it almost right away now, you know, like I can just tell by their vibration, oh, they're gonna like here, or, you know, you see a lot of people, and they'll kind of be in that, and they'll be talking a million miles an hour and like sort of very positively. Oh, I love it here. I'm like, they're going to be gone in 3 weeks. Like, right. And that's just because, you know, we've talked about this a lot, but I very much feel like you're not, to live here long term, I mean, you kind of have to be sort of very comfortable with yourself to some degree, or at least very much in that process of like, and like willing to face yourself over and over again. And you have to like truly be able and be interested in like human interaction all the time. You know, like actually figuring out your life in a very like real way all the time. And, you know, there's not a lot of conveniences. So like, you know, unless you have to enjoy the fun of just how interpersonal everything is, and how going about your business is so like funny and hands-on, and it's like if you're here but you have some like goal where it's like, you know, in the exterior 3D world, like I'm trying to accomplish this. This is really not the place to live.
Wrong place.
Like, yeah, like it just isn't. I mean, you know, if you're a go-getter and you're got
ladder
big
climber.
Yeah, you've got big dreams. Like this is, I mean, what you're gonna
You can have big dreams, but different. Yeah.
But a different kind.
Different kind.
Yeah. I mean, you could have big dreams of spirituality.
Sure.
Or big dreams of like knowing yourself, or big dreams of, you know, of like growth. You know, but if you're trying to like build an enterprise or something, or, you know, I mean, why would you live here? Yeah.
This is not the right place.
You know, so yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, there was, you know, over the weekend, you know, we had soccer, Quinn had soccer, and there's, you know, the men, you know, like it's here, like the Ecuadorians, the community, everybody plays soccer in Equa Valley, right? At every age. As you age, that's what they do. The men's leagues don't end, even old men, you know, they keep playing. The women play, everybody plays. And there was a tournament, you know, just up the road here. And the family we are friends with over in Los Wilcos, they had a neighborhood team. They're playing, and we know.
Oh, we saw you. We drove by when you were there.
We know Diego and Alex and his brother, you know, and everybody on the team. And so we're there, and we're going there, and it's like the whole community comes out, and we just watch. It's just like, I'm like, this is awesome. It was just like an awesome thing. Like we're there, we're coming to watch grown-ass men play, you know, this weird version of soccer on a concrete court with a weird ball. And they're so competitive, and the kids are out playing, and they're running around and coming, and in between games and halftime, they're running onto the court and playing around, and they're making empanadas, and we're sitting there and we're talking. It's Diego and his 2 brothers and his 4 sisters. I think there's 8 of them total, and Dario's family, and all the kids, and we're sitting talking, and they're kind of like, we're sitting down after the game because Diego's team at Los Wilcos ended up winning the championship, so they had to stay after. They got the award and whatever, and we're sitting down talking, and it's, you know, Bella and his whole family, and they're like, how did you guys, you know, how did you end up in Vilcabamba? Like, how is this even real? Like, why do you still want to be here? Kind of thing. And then we, you know, had the conversation, you know, in a way where Bella was kind of translating, and we're talking, and they kind of understood. Like they're kind of like, wow. Yeah. No, that's you know, like they almost like they respected hearing that, and they're like, wow, you're not trying to get out of here. You like this life.
Yeah, like I've had that conversation. You know, it's always that grass is always greener kind of thing. It's like I've had that conversation with so many people here, you know, because it's like a lot of people have that question of like, what, you know, you're from the States, why would you come here?
Right.
You know, kind of like you were describing, or maybe what you were describing. And it's like, you know, from my perspective, it's like people who aren't from the quote unquote developed world, they get sold this idea, you know, through television basically, about what
social media.
Yeah, about what. Well, right. It used to be television.
Right.
It's not anymore.
Not anymore.
Dating myself. That, you know, what life could be like or is like in these other places. And it's all just materialistic stuff, you know, but it's attractive. It's like the shiny new object idea, right? And, you know, and I've had that conversation with so many people where I explain like actually what life is like, you know, in the States from my perspective, you know, sort of how soul-sucking it is, how this like life-sucking it is, right? And how so many relationships there are so transactional. And in so many ways the whole society is just kind of, it's about sort of revolves around money, you know, revolves around like financial
greed, lust
stuff. And the rat race component, and how hard you have to work to just survive. You know, like people don't realize, like I've been saying this for years, and I firmly believe this. I think poverty in the US is much worse than poverty here.
I agree.
Like, and I wouldn't I wouldn't extend that to a place like Guayaquil and maybe even Quito. I wouldn't necessarily extend it to there.
Yeah.
But in terms of the rest of the country, you know, if you're poor in the States, man, like you end up homeless, you know, you like life is really hell, it can be. You know, here, like poverty doesn't look the same. Poverty here, you know, it's not that there isn't hunger is like, it's not that Ecuador doesn't have its problems, like
Sure.
it has millions of problems. It's a country on earth, but there's a different context to poverty when, you know, when you have the climate you do, and you have the familial connections you do, and the societal, the way the society and the culture is, and, you know, the capacity, the know-how, the capacity to grow food, so on and so forth.
And your perception of poverty.
Also, that's right.
Yeah.
That's a great point. That's really important, actually.
Yeah, because I think that's the one. So all those things that you talked about, that's like, yes. And then your perception on judging what is poverty, and I'm poor, so I'm unhappy, or I want this, and I'm trying to get this. The expectations of climbing for this and wanting this now. And here, like what I described, that was so enjoyable that night, those couple of days, just walking up and going, hanging out. And those people, there were a lot of people there that folks from the United States, friends that I had, people watching this would probably say, those are piss poor people. Oh my God, how do we help those poor people?
Right.
You know, like if you saw, and guess what? They are so happy.
Yeah.
They're content. Sure, would they like a little more something, you know, but
Sure,
they're not
They're
not miserable. They're happy. Their energy is good. I want to be around them. Like their kids' energy is good.
They got light in their eyes.
They're light in their eyes.
They're
smiling. They're cracking jokes.
And that's the difference. And that's like the other side that I always explain to people. Like when I'm having that conversation, I'm like, you know, what you guys have that we lost a long time ago is you know, you guys care about each other.
Yeah.
Like you guys take care of one another. You know, I've said this many times, but like before Venezuela collapsed, there was, and a lot of Venezuelans came, there was no such thing as homelessness in this country. Like maybe Guayaquil, maybe a few people, I don't know. But in Loja, 250,000, not one homeless person, not a single solitary homeless person in a 250,000 person city for the first 10 years I was here. Because again, like that, the idea of turning your back on family or like not taking care of one another in that way is just not even in the, I mean, it doesn't make any sense in the context of this place. You know,
Right.
It's just not something anyone would, and it's
Beautiful, dude.
it's so different in that way. And it's like, yeah, in the States, like we've really lost a lot of that. And it's not that there's not beautiful people back home. Of course there are, and there's not beautiful organizations and beautiful sort of heart-centered people who are, you know, living their lives as you know, service oriented as they can. There's all that stuff.
Of course there is, yeah.
But overall, like as a culture, it's pretty heartless, man.
It seems
pretty like
lacking a lot of heart.
Yeah.
And here it permeates through every level. Like even, you know, Diego's kids, like Jesus is 8 or 9 years old, and you know, Quinn and Iker and Jesus, they're like best friends. You know, they're like, and they'll talk about us as family now, and you know, Jesus, for his homework, he had to write a letter to his best friend. Dude, I'm gonna choke up just think like the letter that he wrote to Quinn.
Yeah, you showed it.
Dude, it's like, I'm like, that's like a real thing. Like these kids will run up and give me like real hugs, not like like when my own daughter gives me the whole teenage daughter half hug, side hug thing. Like these kids are running up, you know what I mean? Like this is real. Like they really care. They really feel that way. And dude, it's awesome. And the fact that it's not, you know, it's not just the adult. It's every level. The grandparents, you know, and they're so like humble. You know, like we were walking the whole family. There's probably 20 of them. We're walking down, the grandparents, old grandparents, you know, and they're walking all the way this way to go to Los Wilcos. And we're like, they wanted to walk.
Good like half-hour walk.
They didn't want to they didn't want to ride. And then we get here and they're going to cut through here and go through the Coliseum. And then we remembered that there's a spot down there that's really difficult for probably the grandparents. And they're like, no, it's fine, we'll do it. And they wouldn't take the ride. And then finally I'm like, no, get in the car, get in the truck. Like me, and then you're like, they really just wanted you to do that in a way. Like they weren't ever gonna, they weren't ever gonna say, yes, I'll do it, And but because what's the big deal? It takes us 2 minutes. So then we packed some of the, elders in the truck and a couple of the kids and everyone else. And then guess what else? Everyone else wanted to walk, and it was fun. And my kids are walking with them, and it was like an entertaining, enjoyable experience to walk through the forest and over the creek and through the, all the little Swilcos, and then Tiff picks them up. So it's just like those things are real here, those experiences, if you want those. And like, those are like the joys for me now. Like those are the things I appreciate and I'm grateful for. They're not inconveniences. And you know what I mean? It's like,
yeah, and it's such a shift in perspective. I mean, it has been for me. One that's still in process, for me. But it's such a shift in perspective between, sort of that just constantly goal-oriented approach where you're just, the finish line is what matters all the time, and you're trying to like accomplish whatever you're trying to accomplish, and you're just kind of like running around trying to get here, versus, like sometimes, just the joy of like a smile or like the inner, or like a heartwarming interaction, or just, giving a shit about someone and like just having even a 5-minute conversation where it's just like, connecting with, like, something probably we've talked about a lot too, but one of the things that I'm, I really, and it has its good and bad too, because it's like, you go around town, it's such a small town, and you really do know everyone basically, at least, their face or whatever. You go around town and there's all these beautiful people. Like, I really think there's just a lot of beautiful people that live here. And most, not everyone obviously, but a lot of people are kind of real in an interesting way. And
they don't really wear their masks off as
much. Exactly. No pun intended, right? But and so it is a double-edged sword, but it's like, because you're constantly having to like interact, whether you're in the mood to interact or not. You're constantly having to interact, which can be, if you're not in that mood, can be totally annoying. The flip side of that, the good side of that I really appreciate is like, people say to each other like, "Hey, how you doing?" It's actually like, both people are actually very likely to actually answer.
And care.
And like, I find myself getting, I don't think it's an overstatement to be like, almost life-changing advice in 2-minute interactions, like regularly in this town. Where I'll just run into like someone and they'll be like, "How you doing?" I'll be like, like, here's what I got going on, And they'll just like, even if it's just a look in the eye or a hug or some words that are like just giving you that little nugget you needed.
Something profound that's like, what?
That like shifts something for me, and I'm just like, bro, thank you. I needed that, And anyways, it's just, it's different. Like,
no, it's awesome. That's right. That's that piece, because we've kind of, with the systems in the States and what life has become, like the American dream, that kind of, the hamster wheel, whatever you want to call it, keeping up with the Joneses, and the idea of retirement is kind of a microcosm of that. Like you talked about, the finish line, and you're trying to get to this point, and you're and because you're doing that, right, you're maybe not intentionally taking for granted for all these opportunities you have for these daily interactions, even in the States. Like the opportunities are there, just as they are here. I think that people act on those opportunities and appreciate and are grateful for those opportunities here much more than they are in many, and particularly in big cities where everything's fast paced and you're brushing by and you're not stopping to say hi and you don't want to talk and you're always in a rush and you're annoyed and you're blah, blah, blah. The opportunities are there to be grateful and to have appreciation for that and gratitude, but we're like programmed to do this, keep going to retire, right? To retire. You got to save for retirement, get to retirement. And then, and it hit me when you said that, because, you know, you're racing for this finish line, because you see all these people that do that, and then they retire, and then all of a sudden they have all these issues, and they have health issues, or they die, or they have a heart attack, or they have a stroke, and, you know, like, what, you know, what was it worth it? You know, like, is that what life is about? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so. But, or is that the sign, like, hey, wake up, people, like, here's your sign. When you do this, you can do this. It's all here set up for you to do this. And
like really set up.
And you can achieve all and have all this stuff and do all these things and bust your ass and retire. And then, you know, man, wow, hope you don't die right away. You know, like, you know, the thing you were running from, preparing for and scared of, and, you know, like, gotcha.
Yeah, I mean, it's, I think what you're describing is truly the Matrix, you know, it's like the, it's like this entertainment trap for your mind, for your consciousness, and it'll just, if you go with it, like if you buy in and go, you can literally just run on that hamster wheel until you die, and never sort of like even necessarily wonder, but beyond wondering, like, you know, what is this about, and who am I, and what am I doing here, and you know, like,
because that's scary too, you know. Well, you know,
I mean, facing yourself is scary. It's the only worthwhile thing to do, in my opinion.
Seems like it, right? I mean, like, what's the purpose of life?
I
don't know. I don't. It's not the hamster wheel.
Not the 401k.
It's not for me. That's for sure. It's definitely not.
It's it's an attractive beast, man. That, like, you know, it's very appealing.
Yes.
To the monkey mind, to the
reptilian
ego.
mind. No.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well perfected.
Yeah.
You know, the carrot stick sort of, you know, hey, you can have all this stuff, and, you know, everyone's gonna think you're awesome.
Right.
Just do this for the right. You know, just do this, and you'll get ahead. Like, it's just, it's very attractive, and it. Yeah, I mean, it starts early. You know, it seeps in early, and most people certainly buy into it. I certainly did.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 42 now, and I am still deprogramming. From a lot of that. You know,
of course.
Still, like, all those little nooks and crannies of my consciousness that are formed from places that are not me. You know, like, I have this belief about myself, or this thing I think I'm supposed to or this fear, or this insecurity, or this, like, taking one individually, like, you know, that came from an experience or from a concept that came through some sort of programming that was given to me. It's not mine. It's not who I am. I don't want to have that.
I don't own that.
Like,
And that takes my power.
And it takes my power. Correct. Exactly. So it's like, I mean, for me, like, gosh, there's not anything I'm more interested in than unraveling all of that and actually being able to live, you know, as much as possible, day to day and moment to moment, from my blueprint, from my soul, from like who I am, and not all the ideas in my head about who I am that come from elsewhere.
Yeah, that's great, man. We, you know, when we were in Cuenca, we were having dinner with Marcus and Stacy, and we were talking about, you know, the stories, you know, the stories we tell ourselves and how powerful they are. And particularly now with children and grown-up children that are becoming teenagers, and you're seeing illustratively what you're describing, how powerful that is. And maybe, you know, until you have children of your own, if you're going to do that, maybe you truly can't comprehend what it feels like to have a child and know that, like, there's not another human on earth that wants the best for you, my child, than your mother and I, right? There's not another human that wants the best for your life. There's not another human that would do more than I would do for you. You know, like as a parent, that's how I feel about my kids, right? So, and I think most parents probably feel that way about their kids. And if you don't have kids, maybe it's hard to truly think, you know, to really comprehend that, you know, in a real way. Maybe you're like, yeah, I get it. Or, you know, maybe I don't, like, or an immature mind, like a teenager that's developing doesn't understand that, right? So the story they tell themselves about the intentions of their parents, if it's a negative, if they tell them a story with negative intent first, coming from negative intent, it's easy to lie to themselves about why their parents are doing something, because they don't want the best, you know. And if they came from a positive, if they came from a story of, my parents want the best for me, they're reprimanding me, they're teaching me, they're encouraging me, they're whatever it is, whatever the action or it is, if they tell themselves the story that, hey, my parents really want the best for me, they're doing this for a reason because they think it's for my best, they have my best interests at heart, which is the truth. They don't even have to agree with that, but if they start from that intention, then that frames their whole experience, right? But if they start from the negative intention, if they assume negative intent first, then the stories they tell themselves, then they're lying. You know, to me, that's where, you know, the challenge comes in. That's where the, you know, demonic, you know, the dark energy can take hold, right? Because now they're believing a story that's not true because they know better about my intention, which is actually 180 degrees the opposite, right? It's truly from the heart, wanting the best for them. And they're telling them a story that, no, they don't, you know, that's not that, right? So you can see how powerful that is. And I'm seeing firsthand how powerful that can be with a teenager. And I'm sure you've had some similar experiences, right? Right? And that's what Marcus and Stacy and, you know, we were having these conversations, and they were like sharing some of their experiences. And I'm like, wow, this is the human experience of children. This isn't unique really to me.
At this moment.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, because, and then I think it's a great point.
Do you know what I mean?
Right. Oh, yeah. No, I mean, I think it's a great point in that, where I could go with it, but I want to go somewhere else. But I'll just, in 8 seconds, you know, you can extrapolate that out to all humans on Earth and their beliefs, period.
100%.
And, you know, that shapes everything.
Yep.
And so then you get into like assumptions.
Mm-hmm.
And what are the assumptions you're making? Because that then shapes your reality, your perception of everything, which then feeds into your stories.
Yeah.
And then that's your life.
Right.
You know, so that's
the crazy part is when you think about it that way, that's so powerful. Because if you tell yourself a different story, all of a sudden you can tell yourself this story with negative intent or this story with positive intent. Not all the time, but for this particular situation where, hey, parent-child, experience, if you tell the story about positive intent, you keep the power.
That's right.
You know, like, or something happened to me.
Or
right?
just
it's
even
fault.
Just neutral.
Sure. Well, I mean, you keep the power in the sense that
I mean, whether you tell it that whether you don't necessarily have to assume positive or negative intent. If you don't assume at all,
sure,
and you just clarify, ask, seek to understand,
100%,
you keep all the power.
Yeah, you keep the power
as well. Yeah.
And in this situation, though, where there is a clear positive intent,
right,
you know, if you tell yourself the positive intent, then you're like that. You keep the power, right? Hey, my dad is telling me this because I need to look at this, because if I do this, I'm going to be better. I can learn something from this, right? You keep the power, right? If not, if you assume negative intent, then I'm the villain and you're a victim, right? You give away your power. So if you choose the negative intention in a clearly positive intention situation, you're a victim and you're giving your power away. Or you choose neutral and you don't give the power away and you keep your power. Or you choose positive intention and you use it as a growth opportunity and you grow your power, right? I mean, it's like it's so powerful. You know?
I mean, these are keys to life that you're giving right now, 100%. And the thing I wanted to say earlier about that is, you know, because you were talking and I said, or you said, that's just the experience right now, or that's just the experience, the human experience. And I said, right now.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the reason I said that is because, you know, the reason that all of us, in this example, kids, but the reason that all of us have this issue where we would even have to concern ourselves with why, for example, is your daughter, my daughter, you know, whoever, having these ideas that being defensive or thinking that there is negative intent or whatever. Like, why am I, you know, why do I do that with my wife, or why do I do that with a stranger, or like, it's because there were ways in our life, generally speaking, early on, where we weren't met, where like our innocence was taken away, where our just sort of like overflowing, bubbly, life-giving, beautiful self was cut off or reprimanded or smacked in some way energetically or however, right? And then doubt creeps in, and programs and different things get taken on in the psyche, and then that's where that mental battle starts. Like, that's where now you have to, you know, look at yourself, and you've got to heal this and that, and you've got to look at your assumptions, because, you know, maybe you're there's some injured part of your psyche that's then prone to negative assumptions, because that'll confirm your belief about yourself, and, you know, the way all that stuff works. So it's just like, yeah, it's like right now, you know, it's that way. It doesn't have to be that way.
Right. Yeah, agreed, man. What a beautiful time to be alive, brother.
It's a pretty beautiful time to be alive.
Beautiful time to be alive. We're alive right now, you and I together. And all you watching, we're all alive in this moment right now. How freaking awesome is that?
And talk about perspective.
Oof.
Like, I used to make this point some years ago. I think, like, you know, 2020 was either the best or the worst year of your life for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And I think we could just keep going with that year after year at this point. You know, it just kind of seems to, like, sure, it's just like, either your perspective is either, you know, this is the most amazing time to be alive in the history of Earth.
Right.
And you really feel that way.
Yeah.
Because of what's unfolding internally, externally, which is at the end of the day kind of the same thing. Or the walls are closing in.
Right.
You know, or it's
walls
like,
are closing in.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, really. I mean,
gosh,
like,
yeah. In so many levels.
In so many levels,
yeah.
right. And perspective.
Beautiful. Right. Well, if you guys made it this far into the podcast, stay tuned, because we got some outtakes that we were rambling for a while before this. I don't even know what we're talking about at that point, but people seem to enjoy that part of it. So stay tuned for that. If you've made it this far, I'll speak for me only, because that's all I can do, but I can speak for you because
you're me.
Me, you, yeah. I want you to fear. Face everything and rise. I really believe that. I really, truly want you. If you're watching this, I want you to face everything and rise. I don't care if you disagree with me politically, religiously, spiritually, whatever. It doesn't matter. Even you haters out there. I want you to rise. I want you to face it and rise, man. I truly want you to. So thanks for watching. We hope to see you down here one day.
Till then,
we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys.
Ciao, guys. I dove so far into General Flynn back in the day, and
back in the day when?
So there was a reporter, I forget where she was from, Turkey or Iran, that did this whole expose on defending General Flynn, like all the controversy behind it, and how he was set up and blah blah blah. And then the more you go and you see it, and he's a warmonger, man. General Flynn is a warmonger. General Flynn was put in under Obama General Flynn was fired by Trump. Like it's the same thing. Like you wonder about like guys like Dan Bongino, how did Dan Bongino get so popular? He was Obama's Secret Service, right? Mm-hmm. So if we believe that the Pizzagate stuff and any of that stuff is real, and there's hot dog and pizza parties and all that Obama was doing $60,000 hot dog parties, well, Bongino was his head of the Secret Service.
Yeah.
So does he? What you got receipts, Bongino, or no? I don't know. Or
I don't know. But do you know the inner workings of that well enough to know whether there's plausible reasons why he might not or not?
No, but the point is, he doesn't portray himself as he portrays himself as same way General Flynn does now, as a guy that's like, hey, this is what I'm really about because I'm telling you. Right? But there's things that he actually did in his life that make you question, wait a second.
Yeah.
Are you really that guy? That's all I'm saying is.
Okay, yeah. That's fair. I mean,
like you were fired by, Flynn was fired.
Yeah, I mean, that's the same thing for Trump as well.
Agreed, dude. I don't think Trump's a savior.
No, well, I don't think anyone's a savior.
I think a lot of people think Trump's the savior, man.
Well, of course.
It's changed the psychology of people, like the vibe of people so much. They think everything is fine now that Trump's in office. That everything's going to be better. Everything, the economy's fixed. Doesn't matter what he does. That's the vibe of so many people.
I mean, that's not my take at all. But yeah.
And it's crazy. Like the whole, it's like there's like politicians or media or powers that be or whoever. It's like they're starting to take that or use that in the public, like that stuff I shared you with the Canadian politician, talking about the vibe session.
That's what it was. I did watch that.
What the data? It's okay if your life is hard and you can't pay your bills. The data says you can, so it's just your feelings about the economy that are really bad. It's not the reality. It's you're just making this a vibe session. I mean, they're actually saying those words. Like
economists.
Yes, it's wild. Yeah. Like it's okay that in reality, your food is more expensive, your rent, your gas, everything. It's harder to make ends meet for the average Western or American Canadian. But our government data said things are getting better, and they're better. So it's just your vibe that thinks we're in a recession. Like what? They're actually being, but it's like serious. Not even like tongue in cheek.
Bro, like this is what it looks like at the end.
End of what?
The end of a reality.
The beginning of what?
Of a new reality.
Of a new reality. It's the end of an era. I mean, they've talked about the age of Aquarius and the age of...
And that's where we're at.
The apocalypse, right?
That's where we're at.
Everything
But it is. I mean, truly, like if you step back and look at what's taking place, it's not believable. No one on earth would believe you if you told them 10 years ago even 10 years ago, what was happened in the last couple of years, just in terms of like both anecdotal small stuff and large scale stuff. Yeah. It's it's what it looks like at the end. Like it's what it looks like at the end. And this is what it looks like at the end. When you have just sort of everybody on one level or another just freaking out at every level. And it becomes very transparent. Nothing's hidden anymore. Everyone knows.
Right.
I mean, like, Hollywood has been exposed. Like, it's not is going to be anymore. It has been.
Right.
Of course, it doesn't mean everyone, but it doesn't matter. Like Hollywood has been exposed. The music industry has been exposed. The political class has been exposed.
Dude.
There's no, like it's over. Like, right. You could make an argument that, like, yeah, it's like almost like the simulation is over, like,
yeah.
Like you're looking at the end, like, of all of that. And yeah, there's still things that, there's still peaks behind the curtain that, like, haven't fully happened yet, obviously. Mm-hmm. But the money system probably being the biggest one.
Yeah. Well, we're seeing that play out, man. We're seeing that play out right now. Yeah. Like all those global macro trends, those liquidity trends we've been talking about for several years on this podcast alone. a year and a half, whatever it's been. Like, that's all timing out, dude. That's all like on trend.
Yeah.
Like the last Q4 of 2025, Q1 of 2026, in that range, give or take a few months. Like that looks like the time where that's the mother of all mother, get out of risk on assets before the mother of all mother crashes. Like that's going to be the run from now till then. Yeah. That looks like that's playing out. It's actually playing out.
Yeah, seems like everything is actually playing out.
Right.
Like everything simultaneously.
Yeah.
It's the great speed up of time.
Right, dude. I don't know if it's speed up. I don't think it is.
Clearly a speed up.
I don't think it's a speed up.
It's been speeding up for years.
I think that's a perception. I don't think it's.
Well, I mean, everything is a perception.
Because it speeds up. But
why
does nothing ever happen?
Well, I wouldn't say that. But what was
the big macros?
What was the pace of time in 1850? Like, was it the same?
The pace of time? No, I think it was the same. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like literally, like if you wanted to like talk to your neighbor in 1850, you got, well, if our history is even, when you get into Tartaria and all that. I mean, there's been the cycles just over and over, but let's just take the history we are led to believe. Mm-hmm. I mean, you got on your horse and buggy, or maybe just your horse and like rode to go, deliver a message to your neighbor. It's different.
What year is it right now?
It's 24.
2024. So you're saying 1850. So, 200 years.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could take increments. Like if you took it, the change between 1850 and 1900, 1900 to 1950, and then 1950 to 2000. Those are not similar rates of change.
Well, I would disagree, man, because I think it depends. Yeah, because we're in 2024. I can go take you up the mountain right here, and I can show you my friend, the Ecuadorian, who lives on a mountain, and he actually goes to a point on the mountain to talk to his friend across the valley because the sound travels across without a phone, just so that they can talk to each other at the same time every day. How much is time sped up?
Are you being serious right now?
I'm being dead serious.
That's awesome.
There's a spot on the I'm like, there's no electricity, they don't have anything, and I'm like, how do you know? Like, where's your closest neighbor? And he points and he shows, and then he goes to this spot, and he goes to this spot, and they go every day at 2:00 or whatever, and the sound travels across the valley where he's like, you don't even have to yell. I can just talk in my normal voice. We can have a conversation, like, and it's so far away I can barely see the other guy. Like he's like, you can see that there's a person there.
On what side of the backside?
On the backside?
Did you say Mandango?
No, man, different. But that's real. That's 2024, man. Yeah. Has life sped up for them? Has time sped up?
Yeah, I think so.
I don't know. They're playing telephone without a cord. In the tin can.
I mean, it's a cool story.
Across the mountains.
Definitely a cool story.
I mean,
Well, I do. Oh. But I think it's more subtle maybe in different ways. I think it's more like what I'm describing, I think is more just, it's like the evidence of versus the thing that means that time, you know what I mean? Like it's not that just because technology has advanced and we live faster, different lives now, that time is sped up, although I do think that is true also. Right. So certainly, like, yeah, you can have exceptions. You have people that have not sped up at the same degree. But I mean, I think if you're going to take, I mean, I don't know. It's an interesting conversation. Like, I personally view time as sort of the ordering force of this reality, right? It's like the thing that orders this reality. Okay. So if you accept that and you accept, as I believe, that time runs in cycles, so it's similar to like a clock.
Like this?
Yeah, similar. Well, yeah. I guess either way, I would say like this. No, maybe. It's possible. It's all possible, I guess. But if you accept that time is cyclical, so right, so you just like a clock is a cycle, then there's larger cycles. With a similar concept. Again, if you want to take that deeper, like this whole world is cyclical, right? You have
Sure.
the sun and the stars and the moon and whatever all that is. But
Right.
so if you accept that, and you accept that cyclical nature of stuff drives our reality, like we're sort of the results of. So like that's kind of the container for consciousness. So Earth, in general, is sort of the container for consciousness, and then we're the consciousness in the simulation, like playing the game.
Okay.
Then those and if you accept that those cycles drive stuff, events, trends, like what's happening on Earth, levels of consciousness, where consciousness is at. If that appeals to you, which it does, that's my understanding. Then what you see on the face of the planet, right, amongst humans and like what's taking place, is then the result of those things. And so that for me means for sure like everything is speeding up, because that's why we have all of the things that we have. So like those examples, whether it's technology, that kind of being the biggest one in many ways because of how it affects like our mind and technology. You can argue it's the same thing. You could literally make the argument it's the same thing. So when we invent, when we all of a sudden have the internet, for example, that's a quantum leap in consciousness.
It's raining.
Yeah.
Dude, we need it, man.
We need it.
It's beautiful. See?
Mm-hmm.
It's the universe rewarding your explanation with rain that we need.
We do need it.
We need it
Except
bad.
we didn't need it for basketball this morning.
Did it rain during basketball?
Yeah, we had to go to Los Wilcos.
Ian ate you up.
We split.
Okay, keep going. I broke your train of thought there. Thinking.
Well, yeah, so that's just kind of what I mean by the speed up of time.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to consider things like you brought up earlier, like Tartaria and other things, like then.
Well, I think that points to the cyclical nature of time.
The cyclical nature of time. All right, we had technology. We don't have technology. We had different technology. Yeah. We have hidden technology.
Yeah.
We have better technology.
My explanation of that is the cyclical nature. So it's like energies, which in our world are essentially dictated by the planets, right? Those represent energies.
So you don't believe in flat Earth, or you do?
It's almost irrelevant in many ways.
Well, what are the planets then? I'm just trying to understand what those are.
That's a great question. Like, I truly don't know.
Okay.
But I just know that they represent energies, and that works.
Okay.
Like you can't argue. I can't argue against that because of the evidence, the experiential evidence in terms of astrology and everything else, like the way that everything connects. So I almost view them as like the gears of the clock.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
It's like, it's like, okay, now Earth gets this influence and that. Anyway, so that's how the cycle of time. And so when the simulation is like expressing in one way, then you have this part of the cycle where consciousness does X, Y, or Z. And then as it moves into another sector, and that's kind of like what you were talking about a minute ago. Like we're moving into the age of Aquarius. We're moving into a different level of consciousness. We're sort of seeing the end of a very long era. I mean, I don't know how long there's sort of been this dark group in control behind the scenes, but that's been running through Earth and through humanity for a long time.
Well, David Icke, has been says it's for thousands of years, right? Isn't that his?
I mean, so I think Atlantis was 13,000 years ago. That's my best understanding. I could be wrong. That is not something I'm confident about.
Yeah.
I think that was 13,000 years ago. You know what? They show it, the movie, have you seen John Carter?
No.
They show it really well.
They show Atlantis?
No, they show these interdimensional dark beings that set things up.
Demons.
And how they work behind the scenes to like rise and fall.
Right.
Sure. Cultures and societies and humanity.
Right. That's the theory of, you know, a lot of folks talk about, you know, the aliens are demons.
Yeah, a lot of people.
You know, that, you know, like you've seen the whole, on the History Channel, I used to watch all the time, the Ancient Aliens series. You ever watch that?
I never actually watched it. I've like seen all the memes and I've
watched some of them. Yeah, the guy with the Greek guy with the hair, you know.
But I'm probably familiar with all the
ideas, right? Yeah. And they talk about, you know, a lot of that stuff, and you, you know, when you think about it, like from religious or Christian perspective, it's like the aliens, you know, could be demons or fallen angels or the Elohim or thing. I don't know if that's how you even say it, the Elohim.
Elohim, I think.
But that's part of it, right? That's really what they are. And then the ancient aliens is the modern control mechanism to separate, because they've separated books from the Bible. They separated the book of Enoch, and that's not part of the canon, and blah, blah, blah. So there's books that talk about, you know, angels and demons, right? And the Elohim and what you could describe as aliens and things like that. And they've taken that out so that Christians don't think about that stuff, right? They just think, you know, angels with wings, you know, and demons, scary, you know, like, you know, and then they put this whole narrative out with ancient aliens, and it's like aliens are a separate thing, not that those aliens could be just interdimensional demons or fallen angels. And, you know, so then you're like, wow, now it all makes sense. That's why I think part of, like, you're seeing all this, you know, again, disclosure with alien UFOs, unidentified flying objects, and unidentified this, and, you know, really not crackpot people, reputable, you know, people saying, right? But the fact that it's out and there's videos and commentaries and nobody cares.
That is interesting. I was thinking about that the other day.
So nobody cares, right? Like somehow it's like no big deal, right? So again, is that because the consciousness has been so like bastardized en masse that they can't connect? You know, because they've been, do you know what I mean? It's been so programmed.
Right. Well, and also just people's minds have been so
right
to the point of like, it really is a psychosis. It's interesting though. It's too simplistic for me, the idea that, I think that's another trap, you know, the idea that anything is just one thing, but in this case that you're talking about, you know, non-human life forms or interdimensional beings or angels and whatever. Like, there's so many ways to talk about that. You know, are demons, period, end of story.
Sure.
That's not accurate in my world. But that doesn't mean that that's not part of the narrative either. Like, that doesn't mean that's not part of the puzzle or part of the picture.
I don't. If I said that I think all interdimensional beings are demons, that's not what I mean.
I think you were just sharing. Oh, I don't know. You tell me what you meant, but I think you were just sharing that perspective as one that exists.
What?
Well, like you were saying, I mean, I've heard, like, I won't say names on the podcast, but or on the, like, I've had friends of mine here who are more religious tell me that.
Tell you that
that aliens are demons.
Yeah, and that's what I mean. Like, I don't even know what an alien is. You know, I don't. Again, because is it just a dimensional thing? Is there outer space and they're from other galaxies? Is a galaxy just another dimension? Is that even, you know, does any of that real? You know, like, I don't even know. Still, we've seen anybody that's on the dark web or any Reddit or any of that stuff, you've seen footage that looks like, wow, that's like some species that's not human. You know, everybody's seen that stuff. Like, is that real? Is that not real? Is that really what they look like? Are they humanoid? Are they human-like? Do they change forms? Do they, you know, is that just made up, you know, to throw people off?
I think Yeah. I think I have actually, for me, I have a good handle on all of that.
Yeah, do you?
Yeah.
Okay.
But, you know, in some ways, I don't think it's actually that different than like Star Trek. In some ways.
Okay.
There's, yeah, I mean, Earth has had so if you go back to the history,
Whose history?
Well, evidentiary history, right? Not anyone's history. Like if you go back and you actually take an objective look, and you're just you don't have a narrative coming in, and you're interested in like what does the evidence say? There's unlimited evidence of rise and fall of civilizations,
Sure.
and unlimited evidence of lots and lots of non-human beings that walked the earth, that were interacting with humans, that were on earth, that were doing different things.
Right, and that's with physical evidence,
yeah.
skeletons and bones.
Right, and art and accounts and writings and, you know, and it's endless. So where was I going with that? You were asking me. Said I had a handle on it. Star Trek.
Aliens, demons, dimensions.
Yeah, the demons
planets.
piece is interesting. I'd love to get back to that, but yeah, I don't know. I forget. It was an interesting point too.
You'll come back to it. The thing with like that, I'm not sure I'm on board with all the trajectory of things. Like for one, in some ways it feels like we're speeding up, and in other ways it feels like we're not. It's things, you know. It goes back to, you know, when I first kind of woke up in 2001. And it felt like all these things were just so imminent. And now it's almost 25 years later, and nothing's really happened.
Yeah, well, sorry.
You know, and the same in, you know, in the Mayan calendar, and the same in Y2K, and the same you know, at the, you know, just subprime, and, you know, all these things. It's just like, all right, it's here it is, and then it's like, no, it isn't. Ha ha ha.
Yeah, because time is malleable, and all that this is it's a reflection of mass consciousness. So, and within that, for the individual, it's just a road back home. It's just self-exploration. That's all this experience is.
So then, is it chicken or the egg? Then is it a cycle,
exactly.
Or is it?
Well, no,
consciousness drives the cycle.
Yeah, exactly. It's both. I think.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but that's more on it. Like that's, in my opinion, like that's more on it.
And that's where I don't like. This is the part, like, so all the stuff that's happening with technology, and like I can't get on board with the whole Neuralink stuff, man.
Right. Well, those dichotomies. Well, that's the other thing, right? So there's levels of consciousness, and there's battles to be fought. And I say that, look, we have dualistic language, so we have to use it. There's battles to be fought at every level, and everybody has their own role. And like this, to me, is the answer to some of that stuff, right? So, for example, my job as a human on Earth, like my role is not to like get into that arena and duke it out.
Yeah.
Like I wouldn't be a politician. Like on that level, I'm not helpful. Like that's not my role. I have a different role. There are beings that that are.
I'm sorry.
Take your time, bro.
I just told myself a joke. I'm not gonna tell it.
You're not gonna tell it.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry.
I'm okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you after.
You know, so there are beings who, whatever level that they're on, they're still positively polarized, and they're in that. That's their world. Their consciousness may have a ceiling to it. Like they may be, their job may be in that level of the play.
Sure.
So
I believe that.
That's an interesting explanation for some of the people who seem incongruent a bit like you brought up Neuralink.
Yeah.
Like they may have a role to play in that world where their job is to influence and affect that at that level, and perhaps they're doing it very, very well. But you know, there's always a design. So like, how did they get into that position? That had to work. Like that had to for them to fulfill their mission, if there is one, and if that's right, then they would have had to have been in position to be that person. So even stuff like that,
an intelligent design kind of thing.
Yeah, well, design overall, like, yeah, you know. So if let's use Elon Musk as an example, like if Elon Musk has a role to play, which everyone has a role to play, but if he has a role to play in terms of things shifting for the better, him having a role in some of the cutting edge technologies that could be super dangerous is an interesting position.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case or not.
Right.
I don't know. But there are incongruencies with him, with Trump, with all these other guys we've been talking about.
Right. I mean, and there's just so many
Kennedy.
real life benefits to Neuralink for folks like that are paraplegic or quadriplegic or blind or deaf, and you know, the Neuralink allows them to hear and see and talk, and you know, like, wow, that's, you know, you think that's so amazing for people, right? And then the flip side of that is like, wow, like you're connecting your brain to a computer that, like, you can see how things get hacked, you know, and like controlled and manipulated, and it's like, wow, what are you really doing? And then that makes movies like now, thinking about the movie Terminator, they're like, oh yeah, that's plausible. You know, like you can see the trajectory of that, you know. And now you got AI and Neuralink combined, and people saying, give it to me, I can't get enough, give it to me. And then it comes to a point where enough, you know, now where's the competitive advantage or disadvantage? It's going to be such a massive disadvantage to not be plugged into Neuralink, to not be plugged into AI.
Yeah,
you know,
if we stay in that paradigm.
Well, that's the reality right now.
I don't know that paradigm is long for this world in terms of competition and scarcity. And
yeah, well, I'm not saying that's that. I mean, unless, you know, you talked about, you know, the yin and the yang and the balance and things that are always cycling back and forth and finding balance, and, you know, it's not like all of a sudden the dark is gone.
So, no, I mean, I think we're in that process now.
Right. But is it ever gone?
Well, yeah, I don't have that answer.
You know what I mean? Like,
of course, yeah. I mean,
then that's going to keep any of that, those tools.
I think all timelines exist, you know, to some degree. And I think at the end of the day, like, it's an individual experience. So it's really like our own darkness. That's the forecast of whether those realities are in our reality or not.
Yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's true.
And that's why
the guy in the mountain doesn't believe you.
That's why he doesn't need that. That's why he's not part of that reality.
But that's, well, sure, but that's why. But regardless of he's part of that reality, doesn't mean it doesn't happen in this reality.
Yeah, it depends what you mean by this reality. But if you just look at it like people who were afraid, for example, you know, in 2020,
of getting the jab or of the virus.
Virus. I would just say we're afraid. Like people who who are in that
fear
paradigm of fear or vibration of fear in 2020, you know, took some experimental shots. I would argue that hasn't gone very well. That was probably a poor decision. Well, not necessarily a poor decision in the ultimate scheme of things, because it's all just, you know, all roads lead to Rome. It's all just adventures in consciousness. Like, we're all just learning. So
Rome is where the heart is.
It's just a different way. just a different way to learn. But anyways, people who have are fear, and it is interesting what you brought up, the other side of that too, right? Because people right now, there's a lot of fear about World War III. There's a lot of fear about sort of totalitarianism of one form or another. Then there's also fear of those people, right? There's like the other side that's like afraid of the people who are afraid of totalitarianism,
Right.
who think that those people are like Nazis and you know all kinds of stuff like that. But anyways, if you were in that paradigm of fear in 2020, you lived a very interesting reality over the next couple of years, right? You experienced probably lockdowns. You experienced different weird stuff going on at work. You were worried about people dying. You were
not letting your family see your kids.
Right, like all kinds of you got a lot of turmoil in one way or the other, very likely, and this may be triggering for people who hear this. It is what it is. So versus, right, if those aspects of yourself had already been explored, and therefore they were worked, they were I'm not thinking of a better word, but you were done with that piece of yourself at that point, if that had been explored already by 2020, you literally weren't on that timeline. Right. Like you didn't experience any of that.
Well, you might have like, because even for me personally, I could say in the beginning, I'm like, wow, something's not right. I don't know what it is, but at first it was a little like, this is freaky, but it wasn't like for a long period. It was for a period of time, a short period of time. Yeah, and where you're like, what's going on? Like, I don't know what's happening here.
Agreed, for me too. But like to the degree that it was freaky, is an aspect of yourself that you haven't looked at, right? That's like an unprocessed piece.
Well, why? I mean, that's not necessarily true. Like,
because there's fear attached to that.
No, not necessarily. Disease, like, so you should not be scared of disease.
Well, I don't think it's a should thing.
Well, but I mean, but it's not reasonable to have, like, it's not like fear is an unnatural. It's not an unnatural emotion.
I would say fight. I would say fear in the sense of I'm about to die. I have to react, which I wouldn't really call fear, is natural. I wouldn't say that fear beyond that is quote unquote natural. Everyone has it on Earth currently.
Right.
But I wouldn't call it natural.
Well, fear is natural. Right.
Survival instinct is natural.
Yes, that's fear.
Okay.
I mean, that's right. I mean, right? Fight or flight.
I'm different. Yes, but I'm differentiating between the fear that an elk feels when a fucking lion pops out of the
right. No, that's the same thing. But that's what this
versus the elk eating grass, stressing about a potential lion.
Right. So, but the COVID stuff was the lion, because we've been so programmed about disease. Like terrain theory isn't like a popular theory. We're hammered, particularly in the United States, with pharmaceuticals will save your life, and commercials and doctors, and be scared of this bacteria. Like everybody's a germaphobe, and wash your hands, and stay out of the dirt, and clears the bacteria, and scared of this virus, and shots for this. Like that's our whole life growing up. Like that's what you're pounded from every aspect, right? So then all of a sudden in 2020 you have this holy people are dropping dead and puking blood, and like that is your lion. That's your lion right there. Holy shit, what do we do? Where do we run? Do we how do we what do we do? It's not, I don't think it was that oh my god, the groceries are a little more expensive this week.
Yeah, there was shock value, and that those fears certainly could come up, which is interesting too, right? Because at the end of the day, all fear, the underlying basis of all fear is fear of death.
Yeah.
And so I think but I do believe also too, the fear of death is very optional, depending on, again, like to what level you faced yourself.
Yeah, to some extent, I think. Yeah.
I think that there's beings that have walked this earth completely free in that sense.
Sure.
You know, I don't think Yeshua like had a like primordial fear of death, for example.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah, right.
I would agree.
Yeah.
Clearly,
I think there's other
not.
examples.
Yeah,
Also,
yeah,
but, you know,
yeah, maybe. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
That's
sure.
what I mean by, but that's what I mean by like timeline. So like what, you know, like it's your perspective. It's your perspective that.
No, it's my perspective.
Yes.
No, it's your perspective. But it's your your.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, no one gets the joke except me, but but even that is interesting because that's the whole thing, right? It's the individual versus collective consciousness.
But there's that balance. The yin and the yang still matters, man. That's the thing. Like it's not like all of a sudden the light rises and the dark's gone. Like the light strengthens and then the dark strengthens and then it balance, you know, and then the dark strengthens and the light weakens and then, you know, and it's just constant, this ebb and flow, and you know, it's not like, you know.
Yeah, but I think you do graduate. So I think that's where I think the individual part comes in, because I think overall what you're saying in terms of like the school aspect of it is true, right? So like all those experiences are available to you.
Yeah.
But I do think that ultimately like that essentially training program to know thyself, like to like realize that it's just you.
Right.
That there, you know, it's just you, and that, you know, so if you can, I totally, you know, am of the opinion that you can graduate out of duality.
Sure.
Where that need for the duality no longer applies.
That would be so easy if they just do if they're real, program a real alien invasion, mankind unites, it's over, done. Like a real battle of the World War of the Worlds. That you shift everybody, and then those that don't
shift, you know, everyone into what though? I don't understand.
Like uniting to, you know, like it doesn't even have to be real, right? That's how are you going to get the mass to move? If you need the mass to move,
why? Well, I mean, I'm not arguing.
Well, no, but that's what you're trying. That's the point, right? What's the point then?
Well, I don't know, but I mean, finish your point.
No, the point is, if the point is to become one with God, to go to heaven, whatever you want to call it, to, you know, you would call it, what do you call it? What do you call it? Ascend, enlighten.
Ascend. Yeah, well, I think there's levels. I mean, I think there's
right.
levels.
So for you to do that, that means you want everybody to do that because you're everybody, and everybody's you. So in order for that to happen, like, it's not this. It'd be so easy to get a whole bunch of people to do it at once. If that really is the goal,
with that.
Why wouldn't it be?
Well, I think that if there's a perceived threat, number one, that is duality. Although it is a great way to face yourself, but
that's the point. That's the point, because then it's not a man versus man. Like the reason
what's the difference?
Because these conflicts are forcing us as humans to identify the differences, to identify the dark. This is why I'm fighting you. This is why we're not. This is why we don't vibe. This is why we don't jive. This is why our energies are different. We say that. Oh, hello, Biscuit. Hello, Biscuit. Come here. Are you light energy? Look at this little one. Hello. Hello. Give me kisses. Give me kisses. Hey. You want to see Jesse? Yeah. So you do that, and you're man versus man. That's all it is. Seeking differences, right? And identifying them and breathing life into that. If you're bringing an existential threat, or a threat not non-man, even the perception of a non-man threat, then it's men seeking likeness, seeking what's common.
But I mean, for the cause of war.
Well, but if it's just forcing you to, if the point is to just overcome and work through yourself, that's a way to do it.
Yeah, I mean, death is a beautiful teacher in that way.
Exactly. That's what I'm saying. But then, and then you're having so many people all at once go through that at a very, you know, acute, you know, dramatic, intense way at once. Like I think you know that's a scale tipper in the yin and the yang, you know, in my opinion.
I don't know. Yeah,
I don't know. Who knows? We should probably start the podcast.
Okay. I don't.
It is what it is.
Your dog
Just do
is.
it. It's a great dog.
It's a great dog. I like the other one better.
No, they're both good. This one, she's a sweetie though. I mean, she gets picked on. The other one's
Does
so
she?
much bigger. Like,
Yeah, you should.
bite them.
Bro.
I mean, I've adopted 2 of your female cats, 2 of your female dogs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm not adopting? Do you?
I do.
What?
Wait.
What am I not adopting?
I don't know. What?
I don't know. You said you know.
I do.
Okay, so what am I not adopting? I adopted 2 of your female cats.
I mean, I know what you're not adopting, but I don't know what it is that you mean.
Oh, are you lying?
Well, I can't be 100% sure.
I know, because I definitely didn't, you know, make this joke earlier.
Right. All right.
Go on.
It's a very cute dog.
Yeah, she's great.
Yeah.
I'll sit up on the balcony. She'll just jump in my lap, just like look out, Mondongo, and hang out. Huh, little Biscuit.
My kids miss him.
Jacob was here today playing with him for
Yeah.
a little bit.
Oh.
They came up and were excited.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome back. I don't know if I can keep calling it the Ecuador Insider Podcast. Hey guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe to our channel here. For real estate videos, click here. For content you're gonna absolutely love, right here. And to find out how these crazy guys got to Ecuador, click right here.